My name is Graham Terrell. I'm with Kepler, and we are the developer of the 300 Moore Street project. It's actually 300 Moore Street and 350 Moore Street. It's a very large PUD, approximately 1.4 million square feet, consisting of apartments, office space, retail, and a big component of it is a couple of very significant plazas and public spaces that we're building into the design. I do have some boards which I can show if we want to get refreshed on that, but generally what we're here to talk about tonight is we came in April, did a presentation, we got a support vote from the board, from the commission, and requested the support letter, which unfortunately we got, but didn't quite state properly exactly what our PUD is, which is a stage 1 and a consolidated PUD. It has 2 phases to it. And then the other element, as Commissioner Lewis mentioned, is that since that time we've really sort of fully developed the benefits package, and so now that's much better defined, and so we'd like the letter to also highlight that as well. And just real quickly, the main points in there for the benefits are that we also have 10% affordable housing, 50% at 50, 50% at 80. This is a much larger development, so that actually translates into 112 affordable housing units as part of the overall PUD. We also have in there makerspace. For those of you not familiar with makerspace, it's areas that are designated within the retail that are going to be more for production type uses, and they're going to really be marketed specifically to small and local businesses. So it's an opportunity for local DC companies to try their arm at opening a business. We're already seeing some of that in the union market, but we think that's a great sort of evolution of the marketplace. And we have 3,000 square feet of that. We also have, as an interim use, we're going to be adding some what we call incubators, and those are going to be more like containers or some other similar temporary structure where, again, we're going to encourage small businesses to open up and try out a small business idea. We're going to support that by offering them a relatively nominal rent, and then of course if they're successful they'll be able to grow and move into the other spaces within the project. I'm trying to think what else we have on our list there. Legal buildings, and then we do also a first source employment agreement. So I think we've really sort of upped a lot of the amenities that we had originally in our package. We came to the SMD a couple of weeks ago, made that presentation, and again tonight we're just really asking for a more formal letter of support from the one that we had back in April.
Thank you.
Discussion. Yeah, quick discussion.
Yeah.
I would like the letter to reflect what you said in terms of actually the first source agreements and especially the parts about the incubator businesses.
Yeah.
And also, thank you for the LEED gold buildings, but that's not a community benefit.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, the Office of Planning is very big into the LEED, and obviously, I mean, it does have a lot of elements to it that do, I think, also benefit the residents as well as just having sustainable building. There are things like electric charging stations in the garage and those types of things. So there are sort of a fairly broad number of environmental benefits to having a LEED gold building.
Support. Okay, I see that.
Yeah, it is specific.
Okay.
We could probably point those at the end there.
Okay.
And literally,
Okay.
we've already supported their project, and they're actually coming back now with even more than beforehand. So we just want the letter updated and more reflective of what's going on.
And thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Lewis?
Repeat your question.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion to update the letter submitted to zoning for, what's the address?
300 Wall Street.
300 Moore Street.
Second.
All right, and just a question, I just want to make sure that, so this letter you've given us is, I heard some discussion from Commissioner Henderson about wanting to change it. Is this the letter you want us to send us on letterhead, or?
This is the letter I want, but I think I see one error in here, with the 50% of IZ. I think he wrote the number twice, because it's 50% at 50% and then 50% at 80. So that's the only correction I would put in there.
So the change is 50% of IZ at 80% AMI?
It should include both. So it should
And
be
what's the total number?
50%.
Just to clarify, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah,
clarify.
that's correct.
What's the total number of units?
It works out to be 112 units in the
112.
entire PUD, yeah.
So there's 50 at 50 and 50 at 80.
Yes, and all they're required is at 80%.
That's right.
So that's a huge win for my neighborhood.
So I have just the change here is to just right after where it says 50% of IZ units at 50% AMI and 50% of IZ units at 80% AMI.
That's correct.
So that. Are there any other changes to the letter? All right, any further discussion? All for the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to another part of Commissioner Lewis's district. This is the historic preservation application for Union Market. Commissioner Lewis.
No, come on.
So, my name's Jeff Kaufman, I'm with Edens. Commissioner Lewis, I know I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, I don't wanna make you late.
No,
So
do
do
your
you wanna talk
presentation.
first, Lynn? I mean, I'm happy to.
No, I wanna hear the whole thing, so
Okay.
go ahead, I'll leave after you guys.
Okay, great. So thank you, I wanna thank the commission, for letting us speak tonight. Particularly Commissioner Lewis, you're always, very available to us and I always appreciate that. We always appreciate that. So, I'll try and be very succinct. It's a very sort of confusing, complicated issue. This is not Kingman Park, which is the presentation on the historic designation. That's a different thing. It was an interesting, I think there's some points in there though that do relate, which if we have time, I'll sort of speak a little bit about. But essentially, what we're here for tonight is to ask the ANC, the full ANC, to vote on supporting Eden's and several of the other property owners' request to postpone the historic designation hearing, which is scheduled for September 22nd. And so that's essentially the crux of what we're here to ask for. There's really two parts to it, and I'll try and outline it as sort of simplistically as possible. But so the first part is there's a timeline and a handout that I hope you all have, and if anyone didn't get the handout, you probably have more copies. So I won't reiterate everything in the handout, but we're trying to get enough time so that the community, the ANC, we can sort of have time to discuss what the implications of the designation are, and sort of come to either a consensus or identify that we don't all agree, or whatever it is that where we end up. That at least we sort of have had ample time to understand the implications and then make our different presentations or same presentations to HPRB. So the first part of the request is, will the ANC support our request to request a postponement of the hearing? Sort of, there's a little bit of a nuance or a wrinkle to that, which is because this is sort of playing out over a very sort of short time period, sort of, which is like the opposite of what you heard about Kingman Park, where it's, it started in the 60s and now it's finally sort of reaching, this has sort of happened over a month or two, and we don't really have the opportunity to come back to you if our request to postpone is not accepted by HPRB. And so the second part of it, and I don't know, we can work with the commission on the language, but the second part of the request is, if for some reason our request for postponement is denied, we'd like to ask the commission to vote on, I don't know what the right word is, it's opposing the designation until such time as adequate public conversations can be had about it, or maybe it's withholding a decision. I don't know what the right terminology is, but I think that second letter or that second piece is important, because if our request to postpone is denied, there's no opportunity to come back before you and ask for that support. And so the idea would be you would vote on part one, which would be sent immediately to Eric Shaw, the head of OP, and the second letter, and I'm being presumptuous that you're going to agree to it, so I understand that, and I apologize for that, but the second letter you would hold in sort of abeyance until we sort of figure out whether they're going to grant us more time on that, postponing that hearing. So that's the request. I wasn't gonna talk a whole lot about the merits versus the issues with the historic designation, because I think it's very nuanced, it's pretty complicated, and different property owners probably have different positions on it. And so in order for that discussion to really happen properly, it needs to be coordinated through the ANC, it needs to be discussed, and they're not giving us any time to do that. So that's the impetus for the request tonight. So I don't
hate to cut you off, and
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
going to
please.
move into discussion and question of voice.
Okay, so we completely, the community, because they did present the same request to the single member district, and we are in complete agreement that we need an extension. The government has not had any outreach or meetings in which they have informed the community of what's going to happen. I have quite a few business owners down there that had mixed feelings about the whole process. And it's only fair that we get the opportunity to sit as a community and discuss it before a community that might be more vocal have what they want, and they're the ones who's pushing this historic designation. So as a community, we would like to have it extended. And as Mr. Kaufman said, if that does not happen, we oppose the designation until further dialogue has happened within the community.
Discussion. First of all, I think the request to extend the opportunity for community outreach is appropriate. I support that. While I don't speak for the Historic Preservation Review Board, I am a former member, and I can tell you that one of the guiding principles of the Historic Preservation Review Board is to hear from the community. And so given that long-standing commitment to hearing from the community, I just can't imagine that the Historic Preservation Review Board members would be opposed to extending this dialogue. There are many, many benefits of historic preservation, and I think once the community has a full presentation from HPRB and the Office of Planning, I think they'll become ecstatic cheerleaders, because this is a benefit to the community, and the community needs an opportunity to be heard. So I think that's reasonable. I don't think that we should issue any letter that says we oppose it. I simply ask for the extension, which I think will be granted.
Only issue why I think the opposition letter is needed. 6C is literally voting on it tomorrow, and for some.
That's not relevant.
I understand that,
It's not
and
relevant.
I agree with you with that. However, they don't understand that it's within 5D, and 5D should have precedent in making the decision. So it's important that we cover my single member district in all aspects, because I know it's brewing down there already.
Yeah, but they can make some limited argument that they're affected, but the project is actually in 5D, and 5D will be given great weight, and the board wants to hear from 5D primarily, and any supportive testimony from 6C will be considered, but it is this commission that makes the decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutchin. Commissioner Lewis, two questions. What is it sounds like what I heard you say was that your single member district was opposed to this. Is that right?
I said my single member district has not had the opportunity to hear about it. And since we have not had that opportunity, we're going to oppose it if it comes to that. Because I have some businesses down there that are all for it, whereas others, especially the smaller owners, they're a little bit concerned that it might be a detriment to their business. I want to be fair to everyone that's down there,
Sure. Got it. And for the Enid's folks, how would you be impacted if the preservation board said we are going to move forward with this? How are you going?
So I want to be real clear because we are not opposed to the concept of historic designation. In fact, part of the reason why we're here, and part of the reason why we're owners and we've done the things we've done in the market is because we think that the place is worth preserving. Now, there is a lot of where the issue comes in for us is there's a lot of nuance to that. Is it the uses and the businesses you're preserving, or is it the buildings? And and then you get into the impacts to the smaller business owners versus the larger business owners. And frankly, and there's a couple business owners here you think you should hear from, but like some of the smaller business owners, it puts a pretty significant burden on them to do what they do best. So I don't, I would say I'm sort of speaking out of turn, but I would say our ideal